Every single building that has any association with this group of people gets lit on fire. Hello everybody, not so long time no see this time. Today we will be going back to the Devil's Night series finally. I did cover Corrupt, I think almost 2 years ago at this point. So we're finally getting back to it and we are going to cover the second book of the Devil's Night series today, and that is Hideaway. Hideaway is Kai's book. I did read Hideaway for the first time, I don't even know at this point, probably 4 or 5 years ago. If you're thinking about reading Hideaway or any of the Devil's Night books, I would always recommend that you really take a look at the triggers that are listed on Penelope Douglas's website. Before we get into our recap of Hideaway, I want to quickly go through the events from the end of Corrupt, because Hideaway kicks off very close after the end of Corrupt. We ended Corrupt with Michael unaliving his younger brother Trevor, because Trevor is the one who leaked the prank videos from the burner phone and got all of the horsemen sent to prison. Damon was also in cahoots with Trevor because he felt threatened by Rika's connection with Michael. And after Trevor and Damon failed to execute their plan of killing everyone, killing Michael, Will, Kai, and Rika, they failed to execute their plan. Damon disappears. They think he ran away to Russia, but they have no idea, and they have not seen him since his disappearance. I also want to note that Kai, Michael, and Rika slept together at the end of the first book. That is extremely pertinent to Hideaway, so I have to include it. Michael and Rika get engaged at the end of book 1 as well. So after that very, very, very long intro, let's finally get started with Penelope Douglas's second book in the Devil's Night series, Hideaway. Our book kicks off in present day with Kai stalking Rika and following her into the dojo named Sensu that his family owns, which is a really hot start. I know, we're coming in hot. Rika comes into the dojo and tries to turn on the lights, but they don't work. She starts to panic because she can tell that somebody's watching her, and she starts calling out to Kai to see if it's him. Kai does not answer her calls, and in his point of view, he expresses how much of a thrill scaring her gives him. Eventually, Kai ambushes Rika and they fight. And this was really confusing to me because I was like, didn't I just say that you guys had a threesome at the end of book 1? I thought you guys were in good standing with each other, in good enough standing to have a threesome. The even weirder part of this is Kai attacks her wearing that Devil's Night mask. You thought we would escape the Devil's Night masks? Absolutely not, never. It looks like Kai is replicating Damon's behavior and aggression towards Rika. We can assume that he is not actually ambushing her out of anger or whatever. He is trying to train her for when Damon inevitably returns to enact his revenge. Rika and Kai tussle and Rika gets the upper hand, and we do get confirmation that this was just a practice ambush. Rika is pissed because Sensu, the dojo, is supposed to be a safe place, and Kai is like, no place is safe when Damon is at large. We also find out that things are not all rainbows and sunshine in Meridian City, even though they never were. The fallout from the Damon betrayal especially has been impacting everybody in kind of their own ways. Rika and Michael are completely wrapped up in only each other. Will is only sober for a couple hours a day. Kai is an explosion waiting to happen. And as we know, Damon is seemingly hiding out in Russia. Kai asks Rika how wedding planning is going, and she explains to them that they might just elope because they're afraid that having an actual wedding, especially in Thunder Bay, will draw Damon back. Then we find out that it has been a full year since Trevor's death and Damon's disappearance, and they have not heard a peep from him since. The horseman even went as far as to hire a private detective to find him, but he has come up with nothing. Mid-conversation, Rika and Kai look out the window and they're staring at a recently abandoned hotel called the Pope. Get ready to hear me say the Pope 600 times in this video. And they're looking at this hotel and they get a creepy feeling that they're being watched. Now we are jumping back to the past 6 years ago on, you guessed it, Devil's Night, baby. 6 years ago is going to be where both Kai and the female main character, their flashback POVs will be taking place. And this is the farthest into the past that we have gotten a look at, even with Corrupt included. So This 6 years ago flashback is the farthest back that we've ever been. This flashback takes place before any of the flashbacks from Michael and Rika's book, which is a few years after this, when they all come back after freshman year of college on Devil's Night. And then Michael and Rika's present day story was after the Horseman got out of prison. And now we are in the most present day, which is 1 year after Trevor's death and Damon's betrayal. We are in Kai's POV 6 years ago, and it is their last Devil's Night as high school seniors. Kai makes his way into a cathedral and he passes Damon in a confessional booth and he's just being mean to a priest. Kai makes his way into an empty confessional booth and starts confessing all of his thoughts and secrets because he can only talk when he knows no one is listening. Kai keeps confessing things and says that he likes to be hidden and he likes his friends not to know as much about him as they think, but that all of this hiding and lying and hiding yourself is very lonely and isolating as well. Just when Kai has finished trauma dumping to the empty confessional booth, he hears a girl's voice on the other side. So she's been in there listening to him this entire time. So he hears this and then he goes to rip open the door to see who it is, but the girl's voice on the other side begs him not to. She explains that she was just sitting there when he started talking and then she just never left and started listening. She then says, before you spoil this little anonymity that we have going on, let me just tell you a story. Kai agrees to hear this story and she tells him a story about the Pope Hotel. And the girl explains that the family who owns the Pope built a secret 12th floor in each of their hotels for family residences, but they were inaccessible to guests and therefore the elevator does not stop on that floor and the staircases are all walled in. So there's no way to access this secret 12th floor. Kai wonders aloud how the family would be able to access the floor, and the girl explains that the people originally speculated that it was just a rumor to generate more allure to the hotel, but then guests started to notice what looked like a ghost woman dancing in the ballroom of the hotel. People have also reported seeing her on the 12th floor balcony as well. Spooky. Kai asks her why she is telling him this story, and she says, quote, "She's still there, hiding on the secret floor alone. At least that's what I like to believe. Secrets and mysteries make life fun, don't they?" The girl reveals also that she sometimes listens to other people's secrets in the confessional, and that she, like him, lies and hides all the time. Then they have like a flirty, in the terms of Devil's Night and the Horseman flirting, they have a flirty conversation through the confessional wall, so he still doesn't know what she looks like. Kai explains what we are well acquainted with from the first book, that he likes to watch people do stuff, because we saw him do that at least twice in Corrupt. The girl responds telling him that it makes her jealous and that she wants him to try and hunt her down tonight on Devil's Night. Kai then tries to catch the girl through the confessional slot thing, but she evades him and she runs off and he never gets a glimpse of what she looks like. We're back at present day at the gentleman's club that they like to hang out in, and Kai meets up with Michael and Will. Michael is immediately pissed at Kai because he ambushed Michael's fiance at Sensu, but Kai claps back at Michael, telling him that Michael's the one that always says that Rika is an equal and that Kai is just trying to prepare her for when Damon inevitably returns. So Kai and Michael are nose to nose, seemingly like about to fist fight, until Will makes a joke about them hooking up, which diffuses the situation between the two of them. The steam room threesome, as I will be calling it for the rest of this video, will be getting a lot of attention this book, so prepare to hear me say that a lot. We find out that the new and improved Four Horsemen, which is now Michael, Will, Kai, and Rika, formed a company called Graymore Christane, and they're all equal partners in the business. I'm pretty sure that this business is real estate-y. I genuinely have no idea. Their conversation turns back to Damon, and the three of them begin to speculate that maybe Damon going to Russia was just a cover and that he is not there, has never been there, and has been in Meridian City the entire time. They wonder aloud, you know, if Damon has been right under our noses this entire time in Meridian City, why hasn't he acted for the past year? But then they all collectively realize that he's likely been waiting for Devil's Night to act, which is, of course, that night. So Kai, Michael, and Will hoof it to Thunder Bay to head to none other than Damon's childhood home. We find out that, of course, the apple does not fall far from the tree because Damon's father, named Gabriel, is also a disgusting, evil man. The three horsemen then head into the dining room of the house to do a business talk with Gabriel, and they wait for one of his associates to join them. While they're waiting for the associate to join them, a girl with her hair stuffed in a newsboy cap comes in to bring them refreshments. Kai tells Michael that he wants to buy the Pope from the Torrances as a business asset for Greymoor Christine. Michael can tell that this answer doesn't really make a lot of sense, but since the newsboy cap girl is still in the room, Kai is cagey about the real reason that he really wants to buy the Pope. Kai is eventually able to get Michael to understand that Kai thinks Damon is hiding in the Pope, so he wants to buy it to be able to search it. It is also revealed that Will has been taking this Damon betrayal especially hard since Will and Damon were so close. Even though the four of them were really, really close friends all together in book one, Kai and Michael were technically best friends, and then Will and Damon were best friends. But Will and Damon were genuinely like really, really close. So I think we learn a little bit more about their relationship later in the series. So since Will and Damon were so close and Damon tried to literally end Will's life via throwing bricks into an ocean that were tied to Will's feet, he is understandably a little bit broken up over this betrayal still. A year hasn't been long enough for him to get over his best friend trying to murder him in an absolutely heinous way. The horsemen are getting antsy waiting for this elusive business associate to show up, so Will goes outside of the living room to ask the butler where the associate is. That is when we find out that the newsboy hat wearing girl was the business associate the entire time and heard all of the horsemen's conversation about the Pope. The newsboy cap girl, so I can stop calling her that, her name is Banks, and it seems like Kai knows her from somewhere. She looks familiar to him. This is so important. If you're not looking at the screen, please take a second to look at the screen right now, because I have to describe to you, and I will show a picture that I have made of what Banks is wearing right now. I really need you to be able to have this accurate picture in your head. Banks is wearing not only a newsboy cap, but suit pants, a striped necktie, and to top it all off, fingerless gloves. I don't know if she is part of a group costume for the Peaky Blinders and she's just doing this last little intel gathering before she heads to her Halloween party to meet up with the rest of her group costume, who are all clearly going as members of the Peaky Blinders. Kai mentions that she has always dressed more tomboy-ish, but really, girl? A striped necktie, fingerless gloves, really? So Banks leaves the room to go to report to Gabriel on everything that she learned while she was serving them drinks, and then it dawns on Will and Michael as well that they know Banks. They ask Kai if he thinks she still remembers them, and he mutters under his breath, quote, "Does she realize he's not around to get in my way this time?" So we're gonna flash back to 6 years ago, and we are still with Kai. Kai and the horsemen are playing basketball and talking about how excited they are for Devil's Night. The horsemen are gearing up to barge into the school just like they did in book one. However, this is slightly less cringe because at least they are still actively in high school, whereas in Corrupt, they were fully out of high school for at least a year. So the horsemen drag people out of class to go pull pranks and party like they do every Devil's Night. As they are driving, Damon swerves his car and almost hits a kid riding his bike, causing the kid to fall off of his bike. So Kai and Will both pull their cars over to check on this kid to make sure he's okay. When they get closer to see if they're fine, they realize it is actually a girl and not a boy. They offer to take her home since her bike is all messed up after she crashed it, but she refuses and seems very, very eager to get away from them. Kai isn't taking the hint and keeps trying to help her until several mysterious men on motorcycles pull up and tell him to back off. The girl tells Kai to leave and that she thought that he had some people to scare tonight, confirming to him that she is confessional booth girl. Kai's feathers are all ruffled after this exchange because she power tripped him with the motorcycle posse. Now he's really on a mission to scare the crap out of her on Devil's Night. Coming back to present day, Kai is in the dojo reminiscing about this girl from 6 years ago. I'm sure you already know, but we do get confirmation that Bike Girl, Confessional Girl, and Banks are all the same person. So now I can stop calling her all these different names and we will just refer to her as Banks for the remainder of the story. Kai is thinking about Banks when she suddenly walks into the dojo with one of Gabriel's henchmen. Banks is wearing another absolutely horrific outfit, of course still sporting the fingerless gloves. It's not necessary to the story. It's just that if I have to know that this is what she's wearing while I'm picturing this entire story, you do too. I'm putting this problem onto you. Banks tells Kai that Gabriel has a proposition for him. We find out that the proposition from Gabriel is that Kai will get the Pope Hotel and assurance that Damon will leave them alone if Kai agrees to marry Damon's cousin. After they find out about this proposition, Kai asks everyone to leave the room again except for him and Banks. Will and Michael in the entirety of this book are constantly getting called into rooms and dismissed from rooms expeditiously. They are never in a room for more than 5 minutes before they are promptly tossed back out. I picture them walking in, they say 2 words to them, they walk right back out, and then they walk right back in and they do one task and then they walk right back out. So after Kai dismisses Will and Michael and it's just him and Banks alone again, Banks starts absolutely reading Kai to filth, telling him that she knows how much his life embarrasses him and how it is nothing compared to what it used to be before he was arrested or what it could have been before he was arrested. Eventually, Kai tells Banks that he will agree to marry the cousin, but only on one condition. Banks will have to work for him now up until the date of the wedding. After hearing this, Banks leaves in a huff and we see a little bit more of that rumored intelligence that Kai has because after Banks leaves, Kai calls Michael back in once again. And Kai tells Michael, quote, "She said she didn't care if I tore apart the entire city looking for him. I never told her that I thought he was in the city." Kai reassures Michael that he never has any plans on actually going through with this wedding to the cousin. He's only doing it to find Damon. Flashing back again to 6 years ago, and we finally get our first POV with Banks. Banks arrives home after leaving the cathedral, and home is indeed the Torrance mansion. I will be quickly introducing a few more characters to you, but I will list them in the character tree here. First, we have Marina, the housekeeper, who Banks seems to have a very warm, almost mother-daughter relationship with. And then we have David, Ilya, and Lev, who are part of Mr. Torrance's security. Here we finally get confirmation that Banks is indeed Damon's half-sister. So they share the same father, who is Gabriel Torrance. Ilya, one of the henchmen, starts getting like kind of handsy with Banks, but Marina, the chef, gets them to back off. And when the henchmen leave, Marina tells Banks that she won't be able to hide her body with the baggy clothes much longer, like her brother wants her to. So Damon is the one that is ordering Banks to dress the way that she is. Marina leaves Banks to her thoughts, and then Banks sees a car that she doesn't recognize, and then also hears fireworks going off nearby. And as Banks is about to go out and investigate, she gets kidnapped and put in the trunk of a car. And once they stop and her captors get out, they are, of course, the horsemen in those damn masks again. Damon is notably missing at this point. Kai, Will, and Michael tell Banks how to open the trunk, and then they leave her alone in the middle of the woods. So she starts walking just through the woods aimlessly to get home, which I'm not sure is gonna go very well for her, but you know. As Banks is walking through the dark woods alone, she notices Kai stalking her. She doesn't know how long he has been there, but then he starts talking and tells her that she shouldn't have messed with him today. And even worse, she shouldn't have revealed herself to him, or she could have avoided this entire thing. Kai tells Banks to start running, but Banks calls Kai's bluff and tells him that she's not scared of him. As she's backing away and telling him that she's not scared of him, she runs into a wall, and she turns around to find out that that wall indeed has a name, and that name is Michael Christ. Banks is now backing away from both Kai and Michael, They are wearing their Devil's Night masks at this point too. I'm not gonna let you forget. As Michael and Kai are continuing to advance on her, Michael takes off not only his Devil's Night mask, but also his shirt. This is the last straw for Banks, and she does break out into a full sprint. The sight of maskless, shirtless Michael Christ sends Banks into a full-on sprint for her life. While she's running away from them, Kai is catching up to her and just tells her that they were only joking because he doesn't want to petrify her and traumatize her. Kai ends up fully catching up to her, and when he goes to grab her, they end up tumbling to the ground. And as they're scuffling, Kai ends up on top of Banks and is like pinning her to the ground. The first thing that Kai says to Banks while he has her pinned to the ground is to admit that she only wants Kai and not also Michael. And I'm like, this is the third conversation you've ever had with this girl, and the first thing you think to ask her is that she only wants you and not your shirtless friend over there. The two of them keep talking while she is pinned underneath him. It of course turns into some kind of sexual tension conversation, and then Kai helps Banks up and leads her to a bell tower. Once in the bell tower, Kai decides to finally ask Banks if she knows him or if she goes to their school, and Banks admits that she's homeschooled, but that everybody knows the Horseman. She tells him, quote, "I see you around though. My mom cooks for the Torrances." I'm like, great save, girl. You almost blew your cover in the first 30 seconds you were alone with him. Kai and Banks then seem like they're about to kiss until Banks cuts Kai off. Kai apologizes and tells her that he shouldn't have brought her here and admits that he likes getting to talk to her. Banks also tells Kai that she hasn't kissed anyone before, but he responds to her telling her that he's happy to go slow and he just wants to hang out and talk and go on dates and not do anything until she's ready. And now I'm really like, am I reading the Devil's Night series? Am I reading about the Horseman? Because not only are we getting an apology, we're getting an acceptance to take things slowly. Like, there's no way. I am very quickly then reminded that I am indeed reading the Devil's Night series, because before Banks can respond to that nice thing from Kai, they are interrupted by none other than Damon. You know, Damon, Banks' brother, who makes her dress in boys' clothes so that she won't get noticed by potential romantic partners. Despite Banks' efforts not to let Damon recognize her, he does and is pissed. But Kai does not know that Damon recognizes her, and Kai does not know that Damon and Banks are related. Damon starts going in on Banks, pretending that he doesn't know her, and he's making fun of her clothes and her looks to Kai, and Kai defends Banks. But it's just sad for our girl because we can tell that she's really scared of Damon. This is after Damon caught Banks and Kai at the bell tower. Banks got driven to a cemetery with some of the Torrance henchmen, and they all get out of the car to head to a bonfire party being thrown in the middle of a cemetery. They all get to the party, and Lev is supposed to be on Banks' babysitting duty, but he gets distracted by a girl and leaves Banks alone. When she's alone, she wanders around the party until she sees Kai. Kai is too busy participating in some classic cemetery bonfire party fighting to notice Banks. Banks watches Kai fight, and Damon comes up to her while she's watching. Kai finishes his fight, and then he goes over to talk to a girl named Chloe, which Damon informs Banks is Kai's girlfriend. Damon really rubs the whole Kai's girlfriend thing in Banks' face. Banks storms off after this, just wanting to leave before Kai spots her and thinks that she followed him there. She walks into a more empty part of the cemetery looking for David to get him to take her home. But then she gets ambushed by a few guys that she doesn't know. These guys end up throwing her into an empty grave. They're harassing her, of course, because it's the Devil's Night universe, so every single man that exists in the Thunder Bay and Meridian City area are just horrible. They throw her into an empty grave. One of the guys then gets in the grave with Banks and is coming at her until Kai shows up to rescue her. Kai scares the guys off and is now alone with Banks in the empty grave in the cemetery. Where is Kai's girlfriend? Kai doesn't care. While Kai is trying to get out of the grave to then help Banks get out of the grave, they hear one of the henchmen yelling for Banks. Kai starts asking Banks personal questions about who she is and who the henchmen are, but she's not budging. Kai, after she won't budge, Kai yells out Banks' location to the henchman. After he yells out, Banks puts a hand over Kai's mouth to shut him up. Kai and Banks almost kiss until another voice calls out, this time for looking for Kai, and it's Kai's girlfriend, Chloe. Kai clarifies with Banks that they are on and off, and currently off. Kai assures Banks that they are not together and that he really likes her. Banks appreciates him saying this, and they agree to start seeing each other, but they can't go on dates because Banks doesn't want to be seen with a rich boy because it will hurt her street cred. Kai and Banks then have their first kiss. First kiss goals. What if we kissed in the freshly dug grave at the cemetery bonfire party? After they kiss, Kai shows Banks a key card that he swiped from none other than the Pope Hotel and asks her if she wants to go on an adventure with him to find the fabled 12th floor. Banks is super excited, but that doesn't last for long because they get caught by the henchman and Damon. Damon is really pissed to find the two of them down there, and Kai is really confused because once again, Kai has no idea that Damon and Banks know each other, and Damon acted like he didn't know who Banks was in the bell tower, so Kai is like, why are you crashing out over this girl that you don't even know? Will and Michael then show up as well, so I guess everybody was just invited to this confrontation apparently. Kai offers to take Banks home. Damon also offers, and knowing that she doesn't have a real choice, Banks sides with Damon. Next chapter, we are still with Banks, but we are back in present day where Banks is reading over a file detailing Kai's life before and after the arrest. And she thinks to herself, quote, he had always been a model kid. He knew how to party, but never went over the limit like Will. He enjoyed women, but they never seemed to hate him for it like they did Damon. And he could be tough and hard and scary, but it never came off as mean like it did with Michael. Kai was the best of their whole little crew until he got out of prison. Now he was different. No women, at least not publicly. Never more than one drink, at least not publicly. And not only was he mean, he seemed almost cruel at times. Banks is waiting with the henchman outside of Kai's house, but he's not coming out. Banks then grows impatient and goes in to find him, finding the house looking very abandoned. Definitely no one lives there, at least not right now. She does find Kai eventually and they head out, but Kai tells Banks to call off the henchman since she belongs to him now. Since Kai tells the henchman, she works for me now, she's coming with me, Kai and Banks are now in the car alone. Kai admits to Banks that typically he wants nothing to do with people, but for some reason she's different. He admits that he loved that Damon saw them in the cemetery that night 6 years ago and how upset Damon got. And then he points out how he noticed that Banks is wearing Damon's belt. And he knows that it's Damon's belt because Damon would carve notches into the leather of the belt for, quote, every slam dunk he got in high school on and off the court. After he says this, Banks thinks to herself, quote, I bet he wondered if there was a tally mark for me on the belt. Damon was right. It was strategically advantageous for no one to know who I was to him. If Kai thought I was a Torrance toy and tool, he wouldn't know exactly what he had or what cards he could really play. Kai and Banks meet up with Will and Michael at the Pope to begin their search for Damon. And once they're in there, they split up and Banks eventually ends up alone. She's under a table looking at the generator wires to try to get it to turn back on when somebody grabs her ankles and yanks her out from under the table and up onto her feet. And that someone is Michael. Will is also with Michael, but there's no Kai. Michael threatens Banks, telling her that if she messes with them, she is going to end up at the bottom of a river. And I'm like, Banks girl, you better take this threat seriously because he will and has put someone at the bottom of a river. Banks fakes concern at first, but then quickly drops the act, telling Michael that he doesn't scare her. She tells Michael, quote, what can you do? You're an athlete in the public eye, about to get married to the girl you've loved forever, with so much to lose. And this one, she points at Will, is only sober from the time he drags his ass out of bed in the morning until the time he can make it to the beer cooler he keeps in his kitchen. The horsemen are weak and dying. Perfect time for enemies to strike. Damon's father would love to undo you. Your father is trying to hinder a couple of your real estate deals. Damon is who knows where. Rika walks around every day, armed with only her little kung fu tricks. She looks at Will again. And hasn't that cop you went to prison for attacking been sniffing around you lately, itching for some payback? After she walks away from the two of them, she gets a text from Kai telling her to meet him on the 13th floor. Since there is no power, Banks has to go from the basement to the 13th floor, so she has to walk up 13 flights of stairs. She does finally spot Kai on the balcony of the 13th floor, looking down at the elusive 12th floor balcony. Banks drops her scarf down onto the 12th floor balcony. Kai and Banks head down to the 12th floor to get the scarf, but when they get there, they see that there is no door. It is just a white wall. They then head down to the 11th floor, searching for the room directly below 13 to see if the scarf is on that balcony. It isn't, and when they look up, they see the scarf dangling on the balcony above, confirming that there is a 12th floor balcony. Banks tries to reach the bottom of the 12th floor balcony for the scarf, with Kai helping and holding her legs, but she can't reach it. They're kind of talking while all this stuff is happening, and Kai is just peppering her with questions about her past, why she is cosplaying as a member of the Peaky Blinders. Banks is just not responding to any of it, and eventually Kai just leaves the Pope. Next chapter, we are still with Banks in present day, where she has just arrived at Michael Christ's penthouse in Delcourt, and she's dropping off an envelope to Kai that contains the marriage contract from Gabriel. Kai tells Banks that there are a lot of contract stipulations that he does not agree with, and he also insinuates to her that he has started doing some digging on her. And then Banks notes to herself that she will have to visit her mother before Kai can get to her to make sure that they have their story straight. And before she is dismissed, Kai orders Banks to go up and get them some towels. And as she's up there, she runs into Alex. And a little reminder on Alex, she is an escort and she was frequently hired by Will and Damon. And she also became one of Rika's good friends in Corrupt. Alex approaches Banks, and Banks makes a mean remark about Alex because she's a sex worker. Alex tells Banks how good of a lover Will is, and then while she's explaining it to Banks, she makes a move on her. Before Banks can respond, Kai approaches Alex and tells her to back off. Banks goes to leave, but before she can make it to the elevator, she stops when she sees David, Ilya, and Lev in the foyer seemingly about to fight with Michael. They ask Banks if she's okay, and Kai is like, you don't get to ask her that because she works for me. And the henchmen are like, well, we work for her, so do you want to leave with us? Kai then on a power trip asks Banks who she belongs to, and Banks has to say, I belong to you, Kai. And then only after she's admitted that, Kai dismisses her. Once she's dismissed and she's in the elevator with the henchmen, she crashes out about having to admit that, and that's totally fair because she feels humiliated by Kai. Next chapter, we're still in present day, but we have flipped over to Kai's POV. Kai is on his way to the dojo sensu, but he stops when he notices Banks just like loitering outside. He asks her why she's there, and she tells him she's waiting for her ride. The henchmen pull up to drive her home, and because Kai is so territorial, this annoys him. So he tells Banks that he'll take her where she's going. And she's like, oh, well, I'm going to Thunder Bay. And he's like, oh my God, same. He was never going to Thunder Bay. He had no intention of going to Thunder Bay, but now he is going to Thunder Bay. Since Banks really needs Kai to sign this marriage contract, she begrudgingly gets in the car with him. Instead of Kai taking her back to the Torrances like she asked, Kai takes Banks to his childhood home in Thunder Bay. Kai and Banks sit down to eat dinner, and Kai tells Banks a bit about his early childhood, where his family did not have a lot of money and they lived in an apartment in Meridian City. Kai's mother grew up extremely wealthy, but was cut off when she left the fiance she had an arranged marriage to for a love match with Kai's father. After explaining this to Banks, Kai thinks to himself, quote, I wasn't important, not yet. My father worked his ass off to give my mother back everything she sacrificed in choosing him. I was nothing in the shadow of what he'd accomplished. I took my trust fund after I got out last year, invested a lot of it, and tried to make something of myself. But the black cloud of being labeled a criminal still hung over me. Banks can tell that Kai's upset because she gives him a tiny, tiny peace offering in finally eating the food that he had set out for her. Banks and Kai then settle into a peaceful silence while they eat until Banks finally breaks and admits to Kai that she truly has no idea where Damon is. But even if she did, she would never tell him. Kai believes her but still tells Banks that he's not going to let her go. Next chapter, we're still in present day. We're switching back again to Banks' POV. She's on the phone with her father, Gabriel, who is grilling her about Kai still not signing the contract. Gabriel also asks Banks to confirm that Damon is not hiding out in the Pope. She confirms that she does not think that he is in the Pope anymore, but he once was and likely has multiple hiding spots throughout Meridian City. Gabriel reiterates to Banks to do whatever it takes to get Kai to sign the contract and hangs up. After having dinner with Kai the night before, when he opened up a little bit about his childhood, Banks is feeling feelings that she should not be feeling. And then she thinks this about Kai. Quote, "The more Kai was in my days, the more confused I was becoming. He'd been so candid last night, reminiscing about his old childhood apartment, but then his expression turned sad as he recalled how his father had succeeded. He left so much unsaid, so much he didn't really need to say, I guessed. Kai Mori didn't know how lucky he was. At least he had people to count on, an education, opportunities, and chances. I didn't even have a high school diploma. No money either. I could never leave the one person I gave a shit about. Kai could always rise higher, and I was getting tired of being around him and being reminded that I couldn't. I would always live like this." And you really see how stuck she is when she talks about stuff like this. Banks then heads to her mother's apartment to make sure that they have their story straight in case Kai comes sniffing around. She especially wants to make sure that her mother never tells Kai that Banks is Gabriel's daughter. When Banks goes into her mother's apartment, she finds it in a really rough state. Interesting to note too that Banks' mother calls her Nick. Banks is so frustrated at her mother blowing all of the money that Banks gives her on drugs that she just ends up storming out before even talking to her about Kai. When she leaves after seeing her mother, Banks spirals into fear that she will end up just like her and just kind of starts aimlessly walking down the street in the rain. Lost in thought, Banks ends up at the dojo, and then Kai comes up right after and asks her if she's okay. She just tells him not to ask her any questions, and Kai brings her inside the dojo to warm up. Kai turns on a hot shower for Banks and she gets in fully clothed. Kai follows her into the shower fully clothed. Kai opens up even more to Banks, this time about his time in prison. Banks does feel sorry for Kai and sees similarities between the two of them, and they seem to be warming up to each other a bit, no pun intended. Kai then leaves and tells Alex to bring Banks some dry clothes. Flashing back to 6 years ago, we are back in Banks' POV, and this is right after her and Kai kissed in the freshly dug grave. And Banks picked Damon to take her home. Banks heads upstairs to her and Damon's room to go to sleep when she hears Damon come in, but she's surprised to hear him come in so early. And when he starts trying to make a move on her, she turns around and quickly realizes that it is not Damon, it is Michael. Michael ambushes Banks and reveals that he knows her secret, that he knows that she is Damon's sister. Banks tries to protest this, but Michael is like, listen, I don't even care about all that. You being Damon's sister is none of my business. My business is that you're upsetting my boy Kai, okay? And you know how we're gonna fix that? Me and you are gonna go into the city. Let's go. Banks is like, no, I can't go to the city because my brother Damon is also gonna be there and he will be really, really mad. Michael does not take no for an answer though, and he picks Banks up, throws her over his shoulder, and starts heading out of the house. Banks does want to go because she wants to see Kai. She just knows that it won't end well for her just with Damon being there. On their way out of the house, Michael and Banks pass Gabriel sitting in the kitchen, and Banks tells him, I don't want to go with this guy. Important also to remember that she is still slung over Michael's shoulder. Gabriel doesn't even acknowledge Banks and just looks over at Michael and tells him that the gates to the estate will be closing and that if he wants to take her out, then he can't return her until the next morning. They walk to the house and Michael starts laughing and tells Banks, quote, model father that one. I think you'll actually be safer with me. Banks is really, really worried about going to this party with Michael and Kai because he knows that the other two horsemen will also be there. But Michael tells her not to worry and that he opens the door to his car and she sees that it is already packed full of people. And I'm like, what did he do? Did he drive up and say, hey guys, hey car full of people, just wait here for an indeterminate amount of time. I gotta go take care of something really quick. And they just sat in there? Like, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, I thought we were going to a party and now I have to sit here for I don't even know how long while you go do some random task in Damon's house. Banks gets in and this girl immediately starts doing her face paint, and they are going to a party for Dia de los Muertos, so they all have sugar skull face paint on. So now for the remainder of this flashback, Banks has sugar skull face paint on. Banks asks the girl what they're doing, and the girl only says hide and seek. They arrive where they're going to play hide and seek, and it is none other than the Pope Hotel. Their version of hide and seek is a little bit different because it's just hide and seek combined with 7 Minutes in Heaven. So it's exactly how it sounds. The men are seeking and the women are hiding. If one of the seekers finds someone hiding, they get 7 minutes alone with them. Banks runs to hide, and she is at first found by Will, but she quickly punches him in the face. And then this draws Kai's attention, and when she's talking to Kai, he slowly realizes that this is the girl from the cemetery and from the confessional, and Kai tells her to run and hide. And then he counts down while she sprints to the ballroom. She goes and hides in the ballroom behind the curtains, and Kai catches up to her very, very quickly. They're behind the curtains in this ballroom and they hook up, but they only do over the clothes stuff. Post over the clothes hookup, they look out from behind the curtains and they see a woman dancing alone in the ballroom, which is exactly like the urban legend that Banks told him in the confessional. Going back to present day, we are with Kai, and he is at Sensu and calls Alex into his office and gives her his credit card, asking her to take Banks clothes shopping. Thank goodness Kai is doing the Lord's work, getting Alex to get Banks a new wardrobe. And if I was Kai, I would give her my credit card and be like, you better not come back with any of the following: no fingerless gloves, no newsboy caps, no striped neckties, no leather belts with notches for your female conquest carved into them. Alex asks how much money she can spend on clothes shopping, and Kai just tells her that he will give her a call once the text notifications start scaring him. Later, as Kai is getting into his car, he gets a call from an unknown number, and he picks up, and it is none other than Damon Torrance. So this is the first time we are hearing from Damon in an entire year since the events of Corrupt. Damon tells Kai, quote, "You know I'm not stupid. Do you really think you'll find me at the Pope? You think that whole place isn't wired and I wouldn't see you coming? That Banks would have let you in there if she thought for 1 second that I was there?" Damon continues taunting Kai, and then when Kai brings up Banks to Damon, Damon threatens Kai, telling Kai that he will kill him. And then during this conversation, we get a pretty huge reveal. So the following conversation takes place. Kai tells Damon that he can either face them or run away again, and Damon responds with, quote, "But that's not what you want. I know what you're after. It isn't a showdown, it isn't revenge, and it isn't even Banks. Go ahead, ask me. Ask me what only you and I know, and what you don't want Will, Michael, and Rika to find out about. Ask me where I buried the body when I cleaned up your shit 6 years ago." So Kai was on his way to his car in the back alley when he was on the phone, and when they hang up, he notices Banks heading into the back entrance of the Pope. Kai secretly follows her to see what she's up to, and he sees her going into the elevator and up to the 12th floor. So not only did she get the elevator working and not tell him, the 12th floor is accessible by elevator, so she lied to him twice. After the elevator comes back down to the lobby, Kai tries to go and follow her up to the 12th floor. He initially can't get up there, but then he figures out that if you press buttons 11 and 13, it will take you up to the 12th floor. When he gets up to the 12th floor, a secret keypad pops up in the elevator, but Kai doesn't know the code. He realizes that there's a secret door in the back of the elevator, and as he's trying to open it, the doors open, revealing a very surprised Banks to see Kai in the elevator on the 12th floor. And Kai looks behind Banks and he sees a giant penthouse. It is true that the Torrances had a 12th floor built with their kind of family quarters. And Kai goes in and he's looking around the penthouse and he sees the brand of cigarettes that Damon is always chain smoking. It seems like the bed has been recently slept in. So this verifies for him that Damon was here recently. So Banks just has been lying to him about a whole bunch of things, but I don't really know what he expected, honestly. She's been pretty forthright with where her loyalties lie at this point. Kai and Banks fight because he's pissed about all the things that she's been lying about, and during their fight, they end up sleeping together. I genuinely am not leaving any important details out. Like, it is really just that out of nowhere. No time to dwell on that though, because we are flashing back to 6 years ago in Banks' POV when her and Kai are hiding in the ballroom and they see the woman dancing. And Banks recognizes this dancing woman as Damon's mother. This will go for this book and for Damon's book as well, but Damon's relationship with his mother is horrifying. Damon's mother abused him when he was a child, and that is why he has such a skewed perception of women. Damon ordered his mother away when he was in his early teens, so she is not supposed to be anywhere near him, and he told her that he would kill her if he ever saw her again. Damon ends up coming into the ballroom and finds Kai, Banks, and his mother, and they have a bit of a confrontation. During this confrontation, Kai pushes her away, and when he pushes her away, she stumbles back and gets cut by a piece of broken glass. So we're back to Banks' POV, and we are in present day, and we will remain in present day for the rest of the book. Banks is at Sensu, and she sees Rika working out, and Rika notices Banks staring at her and asks her if she needs something. Banks then starts making nasty jabs at Rika because she despises Rika because she's so jealous about the steam room threesome. Banks then actually hits Rika and they start getting into a physical fight until Kai pulls Banks off of Rika. Rika then is like, "Let me back at her, Kai. I can take anything that you've got." And Banks replies saying, "I'm sure in both ends I hear." She kind of got it. That was a little bit funny, Banks. I will give you credit for that. Kai can tell that Banks is jealous because of the steam room threesome and tells her that he will explain that situation later. Banks meets up with Alex to go shopping, and an hour later, she is stunned to see that they have a trunk full of shopping bags in the car, and even more surprised that Banks actually participated in some of the shopping. To make things even more shocking, Banks actually thanks Alex and Will for taking her shopping. While she's in the car with the two of them, she gets a call from an unknown number, and of course it's Damon. Damon is really in his Star 67 era. Banks tells Damon immediately that she can't talk, but Damon is unfazed and somehow knows that her and Kai slept together at the Pope recently. He tells Banks that he is going to kill Kai. Not because Kai betrayed him, but because Banks did. Banks begs Damon not to do it and that she will take care of the issue, but Damon tells her that he is going to kill Kai at the cathedral that he visits on Wednesday nights. It just so happens to be Wednesday, and it also just so happens to be nighttime. Banks then asks Will to take her to the cathedral to make sure that Kai's okay. Switching back over to Kai's POV, he is at the cathedral when Banks comes in, frantically searching for him. Once she realizes that he's there and that he's safe, she plays off the reason that she's there. Kai then takes Banks into a confessional booth and explains to her the steam room threesome. Kai explains to Banks that he had issues being intimate with women since he got out of prison and that Rika helped him get over that. He assures Banks that it was a healing experience rather than a lustful one, and that he only has eyes for Banks. She seems satisfied with that explanation because they start hooking up in the confessional booth. And I'm like, Banks, babe, did you forget why you came here in the first place? Do you remember the phone call you just got off of before you came here, where your brother threatened to kill Kai in this cathedral tonight? And you think that the best course of action is to hook up with Kai, knowing that your brother, who absolutely hates the thought of you being with any man, is seemingly coming to this cathedral right now to murder him. What are we doing right now, babe? Luckily though, he doesn't end up showing up, but after Banks and Kai hook up, Banks gets a call and is shocked to hear that Vanessa, Damon's cousin and Kai's bride-to-be, has actually arrived early and is currently in Thunder Bay. Back to Banks' POV, Banks, Kai, Rika, and Will arrive at the Torrance house to welcome Vanessa. Banks has also changed into some of the new clothes that she bought and is now wearing jeans that fit her, a white v-neck, and a military jacket, which is a big improvement from what she was wearing before. She's also wearing some mascara from a store called McGivern and Bourne, which is the most Harry Potter ass name. Like, doesn't that sound like someone from Harry Potter being like, I just got my wand from McGivern and Bourne? Doesn't that sound like, it sounds so British to me. Vanessa comes in and Banks is anxious to see that Kai seems to actually be considering her and that he might like what he sees. Vanessa orders Banks to unpack her suitcases because she has decided to stay at the Torrance mansion until the wedding instead of Kai's townhouse like they had originally planned. After they talk a little bit, Vanessa leaves to go and settle in, and Gabriel confronts Kai, telling him that he will sign the marriage contract then and there. Kai refuses, and Gabriel realizes that Kai has never had any intention of ever signing this contract. Realizing this, Gabriel signals his men, and in an instant, they apprehend Banks, Kai, Rika, and Will. Gabriel tells Kai that the deal is over, that he is not gonna get the Pope Hotel, and he does not get Banks anymore. Kai doesn't care about the hotel, and he also tells Gabriel that Banks is her own person and she can make her own decisions. Gabriel's like, okay, then Banks, go with Kai then. Choose Kai. Kai, even in desperation, reaches his hand out and begs Banks to choose him for once. Banks' loyalty still lies with Damon though, and she does not side with Kai. Kai is devastated from this, and in a moment of anger, he lashes out and signs the marriage contract. He signed the contract so that he could get Banks back until at least the wedding. Kai then storms out with Banks, Rika, and Will trailing him. Will and Rika are pissed at Kai for signing the contract, and then Kai finally admits that Damon has something on him. Something really bad, and it's a lot worse than the contract. Kai then admits to them that Damon's mother is dead and that Kai is the one that killed her, and that only Damon knows where the body is. So in the confrontation when she gets cut by the shard of glass, she apparently bled out from her injuries, and Kai had no idea about this until the end of book 1 when they're all on the yacht. Damon tells Kai while Rika, Michael, and Will are too busy drowning in the ocean. And that is why Kai, out of everybody, has seemingly been the most hell-bent on finding Damon. Kai tells Will and Rika to take Banks back to his townhouse, and he will meet her there once he cools off. They are in the car on the way to the townhouse, where Will tells Banks that she should talk to Kai because shit is going to go down whether or not Kai goes through with the contract, with Damon still being missing. Will tells Banks that all she has to do is ask Kai not to hurt Damon, and that Kai will do what she asks. Will drops Banks off at the townhouse where Kai is waiting, and Rika begs Banks to try and reason with Kai. She enters the dark townhouse and does not see Kai, but then Kai texts Banks to come and find him. They start doing hide and seek text foreplay until Banks is finally scared enough to want to run out of the house. But when she turns to leave, she finds Kai standing there in that wonderful Devil's Night mask. The first thing that Banks thinks of when she sees Kai in his Devil's Night mask is how she wishes she could tell him that she loves him. Instead, she just tells him, quote, "I wish I could keep you, but people like me don't get what they want. They earn what they need to survive. And even if there weren't so many secrets between us, I don't fit in your world, Kai." Kai asks her then if she wants to see his world, and then they start playing hide and seek again. I guess Kai's world is just full of hide and seek. It's hide and seek world. Kai, as they're playing this game, Banks sees Kai disappear through a fake fireplace in the townhouse. She follows him in there and she goes through what looks like a storm drain, and she's walking through it, and then she goes up some stairs until she eventually pops out into a completely different house. And this house looks lived in. It has all of Kai's stuff, and Banks realizes that this is Kai's real house. So Kai has a secret lair like he's Batman or something. This is a lot for Banks to handle, and she just tells Kai that she's very exhausted. Kai tells her that he will explain everything after he talks to Michael and Rika because they're at the door. Banks heads up to Kai's room to wait for him and overhears Michael, Rika, and Kai arguing. Michael is mad at Kai for putting Rika in harm's way by bringing her to meet with Gabriel, but Kai defends himself again by using the, well, you told us that Rika is an equal and that we should treat her as such. But Michael tells Kai, no, she's not an equal. She's more important to me than you guys, and that she means everything to him. And I wanted to include this because in their book, we don't get a lot of Michael actually loving Rika back. It takes them a very, very long time. So it's fun to see every once in a while that he actually does like her. Banks falls asleep before she can talk to Kai, and the next morning she gets woken up by Alex, who tells her that Kai is still in the house. He's just working from home that day because he needs to be there to set up for the pajama party that they are throwing that night at his place. That's right, Kai Mori Kai does not have a funny bone in his body. Him and Michael are tied for the most serious human being on planet Earth. And the thought of Kai throwing a pajama party of all things is comical to me. Banks initially doesn't want to go, but a couple hours and a few drinks later, Alex does finally get Banks to agree to go down to the pajama party, which is now in full swing. Banks refused to wear the pajamas that Alex picked out for her because those pajamas consisted of a black halter top, underwear, and a black sheer skirt. Banks instead opts for a pair of Kai's boxers and one of his white collared shirts. She's giving very much risky business. And this is probably the one time in the entire book that I actually agree with Banks' fashion choice. I don't know who's sleeping in a sheer skirt, but it ain't me. Later that night, Banks is on the hunt for more candles for the party, and she goes into one of the closets in the hall looking for them when none other than Michael ambushes her and closes the door to the closet, sealing them both inside. Michael confronts Banks about fighting Rika at the dojo and also about the in both ends comment. Banks tells Michael that he is fighting Rika's battles for her, and he responds that she can fight her own battles. She then asks Michael if he has any pride, to which he responds with, quote, "Rika is my earliest memory, and I've loved her forever. The sun rises with her, it always has, and everything we do together. No one judges us, and will roll right over anyone who tries. You got that? Look in the mirror next time you want to cast aspersions on her character. All you'll see is your own self-hate and jealousy," which I'm like, get her ass, dude. Even Banks has to admit that Michael has a point, thinking about how, although she may have not been as open-minded, she never would have cared if it was Michael and Will in the steam room threesome. Kai and Rika suddenly enter the closet, confused about what's going on. Michael says that since Kai got to have Rika once, that Michael should get with Banks. Kai tells Michael that he doesn't share, which is rich coming from Kai since he had no problem hooking up with Rika. Michael looks to Banks and says that they should let her choose, and she tells him that she doesn't want to be on an even playing field with Rika. She wants to be on an even playing field with Kai. Rika catches on to this before the guys and pulls Banks over to her. Banks and Rika then start hooking up in front of Michael and Kai. We have to get our mandated queer baiting in every Devil's Night book. Book 1, we had Rika and Alex, and this book we have Rika and Banks. Fairly quickly into their hookup, Banks and Rika get swept away by their respective partners to go hook up with them. And I guess that Banks has now officially dropped her beef with Rika. I guess all it took was a little bit of a makeout for her to not hate her so much. The next day, Banks wakes up and goes down into the kitchen where she overhears the rest of the crew discussing Damon because Rika got sent a package from Mexico City, which was filled with matchbooks, and that's how they know that it was from Damon. Rika tells them to just let it go, that Damon has had a dozen chances to kill her, but he never has, and he just likes messing with all of them. Kai questions Rika why she's protecting him, and Will and Michael also question her, which causes her to just storm off. Banks follows Rika and asks her about the matchbooks. Rika explains that she collects them and that the matchbooks that Damon sent are from a place in Meridian City, letting them know that he is nearby. Banks somehow puts together that Rika and Damon grew up together and asks Rika exactly that. Rika confirms that yes, they did for a while. Rika asks Banks if she ever saw anything bad happen to Damon. Banks asks Rika if she saw anything happen. Rika says no, but Trevor told her what had happened to him when he was a child. She wasn't sure if it was true, but she did think that it explained how he treated women. Rika then tells Banks, quote, "It's still no excuse. I just think that if he wanted to act, he would have a long time ago. And we should just leave well enough alone. Maybe he's suffered. And while I'll never forgive him, let him try to find what peace he can. He's sick, and no good comes from poking a sleeping bear." That's why Rika just wants the horseman to leave Damon alone. Back to Kai's POV, Banks wakes Kai up, and as he goes to hug her, he realizes that something is off with her. He then looks at the phone that she is holding in her hand, where there's a text open on her phone telling her to look out the window. Kai then looks out the window and sees that his beloved dojo, Sensu, is up in flames. Like we have to get our mandated queer baiting, we also have to get our mandated Devil's Night arson. That comes with the burning down of Sensu, RIP Sensu. Kai feels betrayed by Banks because he sees that the text was sent 6 minutes ago, which is just enough time for the fire damage on Sensu to be irreparable. Banks tells Kai that she didn't know that Damon was going to set the fire, but Kai shoots back that even if she did know, would she have even told him? She doesn't reply, and she just goes to leave with one of Gabriel's henchmen. Kai tells Banks she's not going anywhere, but David, the henchman that she's leaving with, tells Kai Kai that Vanessa got scared off by Damon, so the contract is off. Banks still chooses to leave with David, and on her way out, she tells Kai, quote, "It was all so easy. All you had to do was find out my name." And then she leaves. Kai asks Michael if they should use the piece of leverage they have to try to get Banks back, but Michael tells him that he actually has another card that he can play. And then he finally tells Kai Banks' first name, like 90% into the book. Michael tells Kai that Banks' first name is Nikova. This is all it takes somehow for Kai to put together that Banks is Gabriel's daughter, since Nikova is the female version of Nikov, which is Gabriel's Russian last name. Armed with this new info, Kai and crew enter Gabriel's office, where Banks is also there. Kai enters Gabriel's office in a flourish, telling him that he has come for his bride. Gabriel is like, "Oh my God, that's so awkward because Vanessa fled after getting threatened by Damon." And Kai is like, "Well, I still want my bride from you." And Gabriel is like, "Well, too bad for you. I don't have any other nieces." And Kai's like, "Well, you might not have any more nieces, but you do have a daughter." And this causes Banks to take a shocked inhale because she realizes that Kai knows the truth about her now. Kai tells Gabriel that if he does not bring Banks to the cathedral that night for them to get married, that he will use the piece of leverage that they alluded to a little bit ago. And that piece of leverage is the burner phone. The burner phone makes another appearance. They have, for some reason, not destroyed the burner phone filled with incriminating evidence on all of them. But since there's incriminating evidence of all of them, there is incriminating evidence of Damon. So this is enough to get Gabriel to agree to bring Banks to the cathedral that night. Gabriel does tell Kai, though, that Banks is a bastard, one of many, remember that, and that he doesn't care. But Kai's like, "Well, Damon cares about Banks, and if I have Banks, then I have control over Damon." Switching back over to Banks' POV, this is after Kai, Michael, and Will leave, and Gabriel is furious, and he tells Banks that he wishes he could kill her, but he knows that he can't because Damon will retaliate. Instead of killing her, he tells his goons to make sure that she is returned to Kai used. This book is, my God. Banks runs to hide behind David, Lev, and Ilya, who she believes she can at least trust to protect her, but Ilya betrays her and goes to Banks. Banks tries to run from Ilya, but he catches up to her. But luckily, Banks eventually gets the upper hand and disarms Ilya. She looks over to see that David and Lev have gotten the upper hand and apprehended the rest of Gabriel's goons. So at least they were on her side and were protecting her. Banks goes back over to David and Lev and tells the guard that David is holding onto to take his goons and leave. They do, and they take Ilya with them as well. Banks then tells David to go and get Marina because Banks is in need of a dress. At the cathedral, Banks walks down the aisle to marry Kai, and she donned a black dress for the occasion. Once Banks and Kai are officially married, the priest tells Kai to kiss the bride, but instead Kai just storms out with his witnesses, Will and Rika, trailing behind him, leaving Banks alone at the altar. Switching back over to Kai's POV, he is stress eating soba noodles while thinking about what he's even doing with his life at this point. As he's ruminating, Banks comes into the house. Banks goes over and piles up the rest of the food, and Banks tells him that she is bringing it out to David and Lev. Banks tells him that they put themselves on the line for her tonight. Kai asks her what she means by that, but Banks just tells him that they work for her now, they won't leave, and they can't go back to Gabriel. When Banks sits down to eat, Kai tells her that he did want to marry her because he does want to be with her. And he also promises Banks that he won't hurt Damon, but he does need to see him in order to protect himself. Once alone, Kai gets another call from our prank call king, Damon. Kai asks Damon where he is hiding, and Damon tells him, quote, "I wish I could tell you. I really do, because it is just too good. If only you'd done just a little more research, man. It's really a miracle for me that you haven't yet realized. Can't talk, but I'll see you soon." And with that, he hangs up. Kai immediately puts David and Lev to work, telling David to keep Banks at the house and Lev to go to Delcourt to retrieve Will and Rika and bring them to the house. Kai then heads to the Pope, where he enlisted Michael's help to try and track down Damon's mother's body. The Torrances are one of the oldest families in Thunder Bay, and Kai tells Michael that it is rumored that they built a secret floor into every building that they owned. Michael asks Kai why they wouldn't have built a hotel closer to Meridian City first before building the Pope, and then after saying this, this, Michael puts something together and immediately goes into a panic. Michael yells for Kai to get into the car and they start heading to Delcor. On the way, Michael calls the building manager and asks him who owned Delcor before the Christs. The building manager doesn't know and says that it changed hands a lot. And then Michael asks the building manager, well, who built Delcor? This is because Michael now believes that the Torrances built the building that is now Delcor, but it was originally a hotel. And if the Torrances built Delcor, that would mean that there is a secret floor in Delcor. So Michael and Kai get to Delcor and they go straight up to the penthouse. But luckily they find that Lev, Will, and Rika are completely safe. And Kai fills them in on what he now believes is where Damon has been hiding for majority of the time he has been missing. After he fills them in, the crew go down to try to find the secret elevator that would take them up to the hidden floor. When they find it, the building manager tells them that it had been boarded up for the past 30 years, so he thought nothing of it. But then when they go over there to see it, they see that the boards have been taken off of the elevator and that it is turned on. So that confirms that Damon was in fact living in Delcor this whole time under their noses. Because, you know, Will, Michael, Alex, and Rika all live in Delcor. Once they confirm this, a text rolls in telling them to meet Damon at the Pope at 9 p.m. Will, Michael, Kai, and Rika agree to meet at Kai's house in an hour, and Kai tells the horsemen to bring their Devil's Night masks. When they ask why, Kai just says, quote, because it's Devil's Night and I'm not getting caught this time. Switching back over to Banks' POV, the crew has arrived back at Kai's house and Kai fills Banks in on what they found out about Delcor. Kai tells the girls that they're going to stay at the house while Kai, Michael, and Will go and meet Damon at the Pope. Banks is pissed, telling him that she has every right to go and see Damon and she's probably the best person to go and see him because she's probably one of the only people that even has a chance at calming him down. But in response to this, Kai just hugs her and whispers, quote, I love you and he can send me to prison again for a very long time. And I'm not letting that happen now that I found you. Banks is shocked by this confession, and so am I, but she just begs Kai not to hurt Damon and tells Kai that she loves him too. At the Pope, Michael, Will, and Kai are waiting for Damon. They're getting antsy waiting for him when Kai gets a call from Damon. Kai keeps asking Damon where he is and if he's gonna show up to the Pope, but Damon doesn't really say anything and he just hangs up. After Damon hangs up, Kai realizes with horror that Damon never planned on coming to the Pope. He's actually headed for Kai's house, where they've left the women that they love the most alone. Back to Banks' POV at the house, and the girls are making jack-o'-lanterns together. Rika and Banks have a nice chat, so they are friendly now. But before they can be happy for too long, the lights cut out. They're not too worried about this though, because they knew that a big storm would be coming in, so they were prepared. And David and Lev come in with candles and flashlights. So they split up to go start putting the candles throughout the house to help light it up. When Rika and Banks go into the living room to put candles there, they see that there is a window that is wide open in the living room. So they go to close it, and then when they do, they hear a thump come from upstairs. They're worried that it's Alex and that something happened to her, so they go upstairs to check on her. But it's just a false alarm, and it was because Alex and Lev were hooking up. And Banks is like, Lev, time and place, you guys. Lev, go downstairs with David to go and check the fuse box in the basement. So David and Lev head into the basement to check the fuse box, and that is when the girls hear a pounding coming from the ceiling. And they know that nobody's up there because David and Lev are in the basement, so then they go down into the living room to make sure that the house is all locked up. When they're down there, Rika looks past Banks' shoulder at something and she seems frightened. Banks turns around and she sees Kai standing in the doorway wearing his Devil's Night mask. Banks is obviously relieved to see him and goes over to him asking him if they're okay, if they found Damon, where are the other two guys. Kai's not really responding, and while Banks is talking to him, Rika gets her attention again and points at her phone and tells Banks that Kai is calling her. Turning back around to face Kai, Banks looks into the eyes behind the mask, and they are black eyes. Damon's eyes. It is Damon behind the Kai mask. Damon then pulls off Kai's mask, revealing his face for the first time since he went missing a year ago. Banks asks Damon where David and Lev are, and he tells her that he has them tied up in the basement, so they are alive. Banks tells Damon that he can't take all three of them, and Damon tells her not to worry, that there's one of him for every one of them. After he says this, two of his henchmen appear out of the shadows, and they immediately go and apprehend Alex. Damon tells Rika and Banks that if they try anything funny, that he will have his henchmen kill Alex. Rika is furious with Damon since he tried to kill them all, but Damon confesses that his relationship with the horsemen helped him forget what he was going through at home, and he was happy, at least until Rika showed up. Rika and Damon then have this confrontation. So Damon tells Rika, quote, "You hate me because of the things I do, but you love Michael for all those same reasons." Rika replies, "Michael didn't try to kill his friends." Damon says, "Oh, you've always hated me. I remember you at 14, running out of a room as quick as you came in when you saw me at Michael's house. People dictate rules based on how they want to be treated. But I'll tell you something. When someone else misbehaves, it's black and white, isn't it? We judge, we condemn, but when we do it, it's a gray area all of a sudden. Other people are subject to your convictions, but not you, right? Not Michael?" He then turns to Banks and says, quote, "People are hypocrites, Banks. They do the same things they'll hate another guy for doing. The only moral compass I trust anymore is my own." Rika then tells Damon that she hates him, and Damon tells her that he loves that she hates him. He then leans into Rika to whisper something, and this is how Banks describes it. So, quote, "He leaned into her right ear, and she reared back, but then stilled as if listening. I couldn't see his mouth, but his jaw appeared to be moving, and she wasn't pushing him away. Was he whispering to her? I watched her eyes pinched together in fury, sharpen, and then all of a sudden her chest caved and her body froze. Her gaze fell and she just stood there like she couldn't move." Damon straightened back up and looked down at her, releasing her. And he says, "Fuck the world, Rika. You're welcome." The rest of the horsemen show up, distracting Damon, and Rika takes her chance, absolutely smacking him over the head with a liquor bottle. This temporarily disarms him, and Rika and Banks are able to work together to apprehend Damon's goons and free Alex. And after she's free, Banks tells the girls to run. Banks turns back to where Damon was because she needs to make sure that she can get to him before Kai does. When Banks goes back to find Damon, he's gone, but then he quickly appears behind her though and grabs her. Banks asks Damon what he really wants, and he says that he just wants everything to go back to how it was, but since he knows it can't, he will make sure that no one will ever be rid of him. Kai then bursts in with Will and demand Damon lets go of Banks. Damon just turns to Will and says, "Hey man, missed you." This is the first thing that Damon has said to Will since he tried to kill him a year ago. Will doesn't respond, he just looks angry. Damon then asks Banks to choose between him and Kai, telling her that Kai can survive without her. But 95% into the book, Banks is finally starting to see the light and realizes that that's just what Damon wants her to believe. Banks tells Damon that he too can survive without her, but he hates seeing them survive without him. With Damon's attention locked on Banks, he doesn't see Will attack him, and Will tackles him to the ground and starts beating him up. Michael, Rika, and Alex return, telling the crew that Damon's goons ran off, leaving Damon alone. Will is still beating the absolute daylights out of Damon because he is losing his mind over Damon's betrayal, and he's telling Damon that he's gonna kill him. Even though Will is admittedly trying to beat Damon to death, Damon is not fighting back at all. He is just sitting there, I think, covering his head and taking the punches. Banks is begging the other horsemen to get Will to stop, but they don't. Will does eventually tire himself out, and he just rolls off of Damon and is laying on the ground. Damon is miraculously still conscious, and now both Damon and Will are just laying on the ground. Kai then approaches Damon and tells him that they didn't choose Rika over him. They also didn't choose Banks over him. Damon is the one that left them. Kai then asks Damon where his mother's body is. Damon finally just admits that Kai didn't kill her, but she is dead, but not because of Kai. We can deduce that Damon killed his mother after Kai left the ballroom. Alex suddenly shouts to get the crew's attention, and they look into the hallway and see that the house is on fire. Every single building that has any association with this group of people gets lit on fire. They're all frantically trying to put out the fire when Michael calls to get Rika's attention and signals above her, where she sees a piece of fabric that is on fire and about to drop on her head. Michael is sprinting towards Rika to try and get her out of the way in time, but the rod holding the fabric breaks and it drops. And Michael won't get there in time. None of them will. and all they can do is watch as it hurtles down towards her. Until somebody grabs the back of her shirt and yanks her out of the way in the last minute, saving her life. Damon Torrance, of all people, saved Rika's life. And after they have subdued the fire, they're all just exhausted, angry, and confused. Kai tells Damon that they're going to call the police and that he should have ran when he had the chance. But instead, he chose to stay and save Rika's life. Very interesting. Damon doesn't care about them calling the police and tells Kai to just call them. Kai looks over to see Banks just so distraught with everything that's going on. And he can see the pain that she's in, so he tells the rest of the crew to deal with Damon and takes Banks' hand to go and lead her away. Michael looks like he's about to hit Damon, but Rika stops him and just tells Damon to get out. Damon takes his chance and leaves. Banks chases after Damon and asks him if he ever loved her. Damon replies with, quote, "Love is pain, Nick. It's never felt good." Banks asks him, quote, "Not even my love?" And Damon replies, "I don't want to hurt you anymore. That's all I know." With that, Damon disappears once again. Later, Kai and Banks are sitting on his bed, and Banks thinks to herself, quote, "An enormous weight had lifted off my shoulders when Damon walked out hours ago. I wondered where he went and if he was safe. I wondered that he doubted how much I loved him. But I didn't realize how much I dreaded him too. At least part of me. Not until he left the house, giving no indication he would come for us again. And the pain in my stomach I'd grown so used to over the years that I barely noticed anymore slowly started to fade away. He'd always held on so tightly, too tightly, but now it felt like my lungs could hold an ocean. I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do anymore. And the best part, I could do anything I wanted to do now. Go to school, try on some heels, come home at dawn, travel, volunteer, go to a bar, have friends." So yay, Banks finally gets to have some semblance of a normal life. Kai tells Banks that if she wants to annul their marriage, that he will. Banks tells him that she doesn't want him to because it's part of their story. When Kai is asleep, Bank enlists Will's help to secretly go to the Torrance house and free the dogs and give Marina, the cook, a chance to leave and work for Kai. And Banks and Kai's story ends with them happy, married, and Banks saving all of the people that she cares about from the Torrance family. Well, almost everyone. That brings us into our epilogue, which is in Damon's POV. Damon is at a cemetery and is talking to a headstone when a man who works at the cemetery approaches him, telling him that they are closing up for the night. Damon apologizes, saying he got caught up talking with his mother. The worker is confused, telling Damon that that grave belongs to a man named Edward McIlanahan, and it says right there on the headstone. Damon just says, "Oops, my bad," and leaves. We learned earlier in the book when Damon and Banks first meet, Damon talks about burying a body. Banks is the one that tells him if she had to bury a body, she would do it on a freshly dug grave. So she would bury it right on top of that person, and so they would have no idea that there were two people in that grave. So it looks like Damon took her advice after all, and his mother is buried right above somebody else's grave. With that, we come to the end of Hideaway. Thank you all so much for listening to this recap. I really hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing the next 2 books in the series, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!